In today's explainer, we're going to unravel one of the most terrifying, yet completely universal bedtime mysteries out there.
Picture this. You're lying in bed and the room is completely quiet. Your eyes are closing. You're almost asleep, drifting peacefully into what you think is going to be a nice, deep slumber. Then suddenly, you feel like you're falling. Your whole body jerks, your heart is just pounding, and you literally feel like you're plummeting right through the air.
But why does your brain suddenly create this terrifying sensation? What exactly is going on inside your nervous system during those twilight moments between being awake and being asleep? Well, let's dive into the science. So, what you just experienced is known in the medical world as a hypnic jerk. You might also hear it called a sleep start, a hypnagogic jerk, or even sleep myoclonus. But at its core, it's essentially just a sudden, brief, involuntary muscle contraction that happens specifically while you're drifting off to sleep. And hey, if this happens to you, don't worry. An estimated 70% of the population experiences this phenomenon in some form or another. In fact, sleep starters happen to incredibly healthy people all the time. And get this, not everyone even notices them. Some of these jerks are so incredibly mild that you just sleep right through them and have absolutely no memory of it the next morning.
So the absolute most crucial takeaway here is that for an otherwise healthy person, an occasional hypnic jerk is a totally normal physiological event. You really shouldn't be frightened by it. It generally doesn't require any sort of medical treatment, and an ordinary occasional sleep start is definitely not necessarily a sign of disease.
To figure out why this actually happens, we've got to look at the transition phase between wakefulness and sleep. This is a highly dynamic period, right? Your brain and your body are drastically changing states. You're shifting from being totally active and aware into a restorative phase, and, well, that shift isn't always perfectly smooth. Right during this transition, a brief involuntary muscle contraction happens, and this physical movement can vary a lot. It might just involve a single arm or a leg, or sometimes a whole group of muscles at once. In some cases, much of your body is involved in the twitch. And as you probably know firsthand, the movement can absolutely be strong enough to jolt you right out of that transition and wake you completely up. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. That physical jerk can actually be accompanied by some pretty intense sensory experiences. The movement isn't always just a silent twitch. People report feeling sudden alarm or fear, maybe a brief electric shock-like sensation, a sudden flash of light, and yes, of course, that incredibly vivid, terrifying feeling of falling. Because of that super vivid falling sensation, people are always asking, wait, was I dreaming that I was falling? It's a great question, but we actually need to strictly distinguish the physical muscle jerk and its accompanying sensory shock from an actual REM sleep dream experience. A falling sensation definitely can accompany a hypnic jerk, sure, but we shouldn't automatically classify every single falling sensation as a dream. They're totally distinct events happening in a very specific early transitional phase of sleep, not in that deep REM cycle where your complex dreams are actually unfolding. Section 1, the nervous system at sleep. Let's see how this builds our understanding of the central nervous system during these bedtime transitions. To do that, we need to frame this within the broader category of what doctors call myoclonus. According to the Merck manual, myoclonus simply refers to a brief, shock-like contraction of a muscle or a group of muscles. But we have to look at two main categories here. A hypnic jerk is a form of physiologic myoclonus, which basically means it's perfectly benign. Another example of physiologic myoclonus is just normal hiccuping. This is completely different from pathologic myoclonus, which actually stems from medical disorders, medication toxicity, or metabolic disturbances. For this explainer, we're focusing purely on those harmless, physiologic sleep starts. Part 2. The brain thinks you are falling hypothesis. This brings us to a really compelling, though definitely unproven, scientific idea about why we feel that specific sensory illusion of falling, alongside the physical jerk. Some experts from the Cleveland Clinic hypothesize that as your muscles relax while you fall asleep, your brain may actually misinterpret this changing state. Because that stage of sleep is still so light, your brain might think you're still awake, but it registers that your muscles are completely loose. The theory goes that the brain interprets this looseness as literal falling, which prompts it to send a rapid, panicked check-in message via neurotransmitters to wake those muscles up or keep them reactive for protection. And that rapid signal? That's what actually causes the physical jerk. But remember, and this is absolutely crucial, While this biological misinterpretation theory is super popular and conceptually fascinating, it remains just that, a possible explanation or hypothesis. It is not an established scientific fact. We cannot claim that scientists have definitively proven that the brain thinks the body is falling. It's just one well-regarded theory trying to explain that weird sensory experience.
This also brilliantly illustrates how our lifestyle plays a huge role. Based on the Cleveland Clinic data, reducing certain triggers can really help your overall sleep quality and cut down the frequency of these movements. If you have high stress levels, your mind just keeps racing, which affects your sleep cycle. Stimulant drugs and alcohol can prevent you from fully completing your sleep phases, keeping you trapped in those lighter stages. Excessive caffeine, that can cause your muscles to twitch and disrupt your sleep. And just general fatigue or a lack of sleep throws the entire cycle out of balance, significantly increasing the likelihood of these hypnic jerks. Section 3. When to seek medical advice. While these events are mostly harmless, it's really important to know when to bring these nocturnal disturbances up with the doctor, just so you don't confuse an ordinary sleep star with a completely different condition. As we covered, an occasional twitch is totally fine. However, if these movements become frequent, severe, or persistent, that changes things. If they're constantly keeping you awake, causing you severe anxiety about even going to bed, or significantly interfering with your daily life, that is when a medical evaluation is a really smart next step. Not every single movement during sleep is a hypnic jerk, and a doctor can help rule out other neurological or sleep-related conditions without us trying to diagnose anything here. Ultimately, scientists know this is an involuntary movement happening during sleep transitions. They know what triggers it, and they know it's generally a benign physiological event. But the exact precise mechanics of why our nervous system orchestrates this dramatic false alarm, complete with visual flashes, sudden shocks, and the feeling of plummeting, well, that remains a beautiful biological mystery. So, I'll leave you with this to ponder tonight as your eyes start to get heavy. If your brain can conjure up a terrifying, hyper-realistic sensation of falling out of thin air just because your muscles got a little too relaxed, what other everyday experiences is your nervous system secretly misinterpreting right now? Sweet dreams, everyone!